Welcome to the 45 minutes to Hell tonight. Now, we're talking about surviving disaster. Now, we can't, a couple of years ago we went over and we talked about food storage, we talked about a lot of different things, medications, and we're just going to talk about first aid. But it pertains also to what we were talking about last week on solar radiation management or chemtrails. What's interesting, and this has a community, we all will have a better chance of survival if we stay together. Anybody like Gladiator? Yeah. Whatever happens, if we stay together, we survive. Okay? And that's true, because you're not going to get these people that are, hunkered down in a bunker and just expect they're going to survive. But we know this for real, because the different social disasters that have occurred, like in Yugoslavia, okay, or Bosnia, the people that survived there, and we're talking years of no water, no electricity, no food, the ones that survived stuck together. Now, it's not a question of if. It's an absolute. Okay, something is going to happen. What? I mean, you can pick. Climate change? Okay, we know that's going on. But how soon? How soon will that be? Will that be another 5 years, 10 years, 20, 100? Okay, I'm guessing about 5 to 8 years. Solar flare? I've got a couple of scientists as patients, and they're saying that the solar activity is just tremendous, and it's just missing us. I mean, just barely. Earthquake? We're in California. I mean, economic, obviously. I mean, every country is bankrupt. It's just, as long as you have a company printing money, you can lie about it. Flood and Fukushima. We've got a really short memory, but this is still a nuclear plant that's spewing out, I mean, just a tremendous amount of radiation that I can see from our boat. I mean, I've got a little radio detector over there, and you can see it in the dust settling down. Now, they have to remove, I think it's something like several thousand rods through a robot into individual casts, and they can't make one mistake in a highly radioactive environment without it blowing up. Now, that's bad and dangerous, but we have over 100 operating nuclear plants. So something is going to happen. Now, this was a brilliant paper. I encourage everyone to order it. It's the title of it is An Abrupt Climate Change Scenario and Its Implications for United States National Security. It was published in October 2000, Peter Schwartz and Doug Randall. What's interesting is they actually did a scenario, and they talk about the unthinkable, but it's not unthinkable. This is going to happen. Now, they're just talking about a climate change. Substantial evidence, obviously. Research suggests that a gradual global warming could lead to an abrupt slowing of the ocean's thermohaline current. And this is what keeps Europe temperate. I mean, if you look at like England and Scotland, they're about the same level as, Labrador. I mean, very, very cold areas. But the reason that they're temperate is because of this warm water that comes up, and then it cools off up in the Arctic and then goes down. So it's like a circular. It's a flow. But when there's more fresh water and there's less salinated water, then that current shuts down and Europe goes into an ice age. Now, so anybody remember the winter this past year? Nice and easy. We've got several people from back east. Was it really mild? Ridiculous. How many people from Europe? Europe was kind of tough too? Yeah, we had some patients that flew out from Germany, and they said that there's only one, I think it was Frankfurt, one airport that has a heated runway. And they were the only ones operating some of the whole year. So this is going to be expected. This is going to be standard. Okay, and it's just the beginning. Reduced moisture, obviously we're in a huge drought where it's going to get worse. The way they word it, though, is chilling. I mean, you almost want Rod Serling to say this. With inadequate preparation, the result could be a significant drop in the human carrying capacity of the Earth's environment. Think of that. The Earth, our planet, our spaceship, might have a drop in its ability to support as many people as we have now. Okay, does that make sense? So this gets a little bit dicey. Now, has this ever happened before? Yes, it has. And when we look at it, about 8,000 years ago, there was a 5 to 10 degree drop that happened over a decade, which would be devastating. I mean, devastating. This means that you couldn't grow crops in the northern areas. People would have to evacuate Scandinavia for going south. I mean, it really, really devastating. But it's happened several times. This is why the governments are getting together and trying to decrease the amount of sunlight on the earth. But like we were talking about last week, it's pretty foolish. It's like having somebody that has a fast food diet and is mainlining heroin, but we're giving them drugs to lower their blood pressure. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So some of the things that you need to prepare. Now, we can't go into food storage or the type of it or gasoline or different fuel types. Just know that you have to prepare for at least 6 months to a year of no services. And it sounds like a lot, but it's not really. Like when you look at, say, learn how to open the garage door. A lot of people have automatic garage doors, okay? And it's real simple to go in there and just pull a string and you can open the door. When you look at fuel storage, you can store diesel fuel pretty readily. I burn biodiesel so that you can just store it. It's just like storing vegetable oil. Gasoline you can't store safely. Okay, that gets a little dangerous. So you might want to think about the type of vehicle that you're driving now. Generators, candles, food storage. What's neat about food storage, and this can be extremely expensive or extremely economical. What would you prefer?
Economical.
You guys are all cheap like me. Oh, how cool. Okay, well, you got the toxic ready-to-made meals, okay, called the MREs that you can get from War Surplus, that you open up, they taste putrid, and they're not good for you, okay? Or you can get dried beans, dried millet, dried barley, put it in little plastic containers in a plastic bucket from Home Depot, okay? And it lasts for about 10 to 15 years. You just have to learn how to cook. I mean, you put the dried beans in water in a pot, overheat, and you have, I mean, delicious. And this is a way that you can store food for a decade without having it disturbed. So the canned food is going to be a challenge because they're lining the cans with a plastic container that changes testosterone and hormones. And then the food inside, it's generally can be toxic unless it's organic. But, you know, so the food storage, that could be done very simply. Okay, when we're looking at water, okay, water, you have to have a good water filtration system or a water source. Since we happen to have the Pacific Ocean close, it's pretty easy to set up a solar distillery with that. Okay, and there's also, you know, and when we went over a couple of years ago about how to build a solar distillery, all it is basically is a plastic bag with the sunlight hitting it and a cup in the middle. Okay, I mean, you can make it as fancy as you want, but you can produce with one plastic bag about a half a liter of water a day. And you only need a liter of water a day. Now, first aid, and that's basically what we're going to be talking about today, is the first aid. Now, when we come to first aid on survival, okay, we know that you're going to have certain equipments, but it basically breaks it down into this. Look at your environment where you're living in. Right now we're in Huntington Beach, and do you realize that you can't get to Huntington Beach unless you go under a bridge or over a bridge? Okay? So like if there's something that collapses the bridge, bam, we're an island. Okay, so look at your area, because take a different way to and from work. Look at where the natural barriers are. If you're in, say, there's a town next to us called Fountain Valley. Anybody know why it was called Fountain Valley?
Water.
Water. The groundwater was so high that there were springs coming up there. So obviously it's a little bit low in the water table. So it might be not the best choice of places to live. Okay, particularly if the water table raises. Okay, just, you know, but it would be a good place to go foraging for water. I know a couple of friends that have a trailer park over there, and they actually have wells dug in there. And the city is trying to get them to not use their own well water. So let's look at first aid. So we got wound care, burns, and poisoning, and that's pretty much it. Anything else, you know, it's pretty simple. Now, when people are saying, well, the chemtrail wackos, the crazies, Dennis Kucinich, now, he's one of the few politicians that I actually supported when he was running. The guy was brilliant, but he proposed, and this was shut down in Congress, H.R. 2977, it's the Space Preservation Act, and he talked about how chemtrails are actually a weapon. Okay, and it is a weapon because it's a way to change, and we've been utilizing weather modification since the Vietnam War, where if you can bog down an enemy, okay, the problem is we're connected. So if you cause a drought in one area, you're causing excessive rain in another, and whoops, over here on the other side of the planet, there's something else that goes on, because you can't really manipulate the weather unless we're, you know, thinking about changing the whole plans. Now, what we're doing in first aid, and this is huge when you talk about lung issues. We have, and I know the skies look milky white, and they typically do now when you look outside, but they're putting in aluminum, barium, and strontium particles, and this is to reflect the sunlight. However, that's raining down on us, and it's getting in our food, so we're breathing it in. They're nanoparticles, and it's getting in our blood. Now, the barium actually causes blood cells to stick together, so if the blood cells stick together, guess what happens to pressure? It has to go up. So you get this world that's saying, well, yes, you're living in California, and you're being exposed to radiation from Fukushima, and you're being exposed to the barium and titanate from the solar radiation management, and your blood pressure's going up. No kidding. Okay? It's supposed to. I mean, just thinking about it, even if you're breathing pure air, it'd go up. But we have to look at more pneumonia, more industrial diseases, okay, more Alzheimer's and autism, because we're breathing in this. Now, you're going to see a hellacious amount of diseases coming up that aren't being advertised because the media is actually under control. We don't have a free press, and they're being controlled because people don't want to know that this is going out there. Did you know that lung diseases 5 years ago were the 8th leading cause of death in America? Now it's number 3. Now, wouldn't that like make the news if you knew that? You know, like, oh my goodness, lung diseases are growing up. Is the Marlboro Man like passing out free cigarettes to teenagers? Is that what's causing it? No, when you look at this, 60% of the people or women in Canada that have lung cancer never smoked. So there's something unusual going on with lung diseases. Okay, that we know for a fact. It's a guess to see this particle matter raining down on it, knowing it's nanoparticles with aluminum, barium, and strontium in there, that it can cause lung damage. So we know, we're seeing Alzheimer's as young as 26 years old, because it turns out that this aluminum is reactive. It gets in the bloodstream and the brain, okay? It's also activated by fluoride as well. But the barium that's in there, breathing difficulties, blood pressure, cardiac arrhythmias, stomach irritation, muscle weakness, nerve reflexes, brain, liver, kidney problems. So you start looking at this and you think, well, wait a second. Are these the body adapting to a toxic deficient circumstance? Yes or yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get doctors prescribing drugs for high blood pressure and all of these different diseases that the body's trying to adapt to a toxic environment. It's illogical. So just be aware that if you're living in the northern hemisphere, these diseases aren't diseases. They're the body adapting to a toxic environment. And fluoride massively increases the toxic effect of the aluminum. So if you are cooking in an aluminum pot and you're using fluoridated water, I know it sounds silly because if anybody watches these YouTube videos 100 years from now, they'll go, right, you guys actually put fluoride in the water? Come on, who would go along with that? Mass medication of the population without control of the dosage? Nobody would be that stupid. Okay, well anyway, You might be okay with looking at your filtered water, but look at the companies that are using the fluoridated water. Okay, so Dole Pineapple, Classic Coke, Snapple, Sunny Delight. You know that's 10% real fruit juice. Goodness gracious, it's 90% God knows what. Okay, so you know, you can't buy packaged materials, particularly in this environment. Okay, now this is my favorite water filter. Why? Because it's less expensive. Yes, I came from a single mom with 4 kids. Okay, you know, yeah. So we're taught to be frugal, but this here, $275, and you get around 6,000 liters of water. Okay, and it filters out fluoride. So the Dalton USA, I love this filter. It's very efficient. Now, when we go into wound healing, so we know we got to filter out the water. That's vital. Wound, the three C's, and this is like one of my favorite mnemonics. Compression immediately, clean and close. And the best ways to, and this is coming from a dad with 2 boys, okay? Our medical kit was a roll of paper towels, an aloe leaf, and a hunk of electric tape. Okay, and I know if my sons were here, they'd be going, yeah, Dad, boy, that worked. Okay, because it does. Electric tape's neat because it doesn't stick to the fur. Okay, it peels off nicely where duct tape wasn't, and electric tape is flexible. So tape, glue, fishing line, Band-Aids. Band-Aids are like the last one I would choose because they don't hold. How many people in here actually use a Band-Aid and work? Does it? No, it doesn't stay on. We know that. It looks good in the movies. Okay, and plus too, they're coated with things. See, you don't want to use antibiotic cream on a cut because there's viruses, funguses, and bacteria in there. We want to wash it out with as fresh water as we can. And to close it, those are going to be ideal. Now, anybody know the name of this Simpson character?
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns on the burn slide. Okay, hey, obviously I don't get out much. Okay, when you get burns, okay, first, second, and third degree burns. Third degree burns is dangerous. Okay, that's going to require some type of skin grafting if it's large enough, because that means you burned all the way down through and you're hitting the blood vessels. Second degree burn, you're getting some blood blisters, and that's going to heal pretty rapidly. First degree is just red. But what happens is, in any burn situation, you're putting, it's just like you would put a meat in an oven. It heats up and it denatures, or it breaks down the proteins. And so when you're getting heated up by the sun, you're breaking down those proteins, so it taxes the kidneys. So if you have somebody that's injured that does have burns, you've got to hydrate them like crazy, because the proteins that are broken down in there are going to tax the kidneys. And you can survive with a huge loss of skin or from a bad burn, but the kidneys and damage can actually kill you. So you want to cool it as quickly as possible. I know there's old wives' tale that once you burn it, put it back in the fire, and that's no. You want to put as cool as possible and clean it and cover it and heal it. Now, there's several things that you can put on a burn. The best one is colloidal silver, because I'm going to show you how to make it in a moment, and this is one of the best antibiotics. See, since we're going to be in an isolated community, and you're not going to have access to the modern medicines, thank God. Wait, did I say that? Yes. And you know why? What's frustrating is 100% of the people, when asked this question, and these are people that are taking multiple medications, they answer the same. Let me see if I can see. If you were taking, like, say, 5 different drugs, and you were instantly put on a desert island where you had no access to any medication, you only had access to fresh water, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, okay, and in fresh sunlight, you had shelter, do you think your health would improve or decline? Improve. Everybody knows that. Okay, so good. So we're not going to have access to the modern medicines that are killing people. Okay, we're going to have access to stuff that we can use. Colloidal silver, aloe, phenomenal. Coconut water. These are incredible for burns. And it works. It works fantastically well. When we look at this, maggot debridement. Now, this is out of the Lancet, British Medical Journal. But now think of this. I know it sounds weird to, have medical maggots that go in there and eat wounds. But on nasty burns and diabetic injuries, think of this. Think of this beauty of the planet we're on. They'll only eat dead skin, and they poop out a natural antibiotic. Okay? I mean, that's pretty neat, because it's really hard to clean a wound unless you utilize the natural therapies that we have. Now, disinfectants. This is going to be essential. This is why some of the things that you need to have in your emergency is cleaning agents. And when we're talking about wound care, if it burns, if you put it on and it burns, that's bad. Okay, and I know when you were kids, your mom would, pour some alcohol on a cut to wash it out. Well, if that burns, it's closing up the blood vessels. Okay, so it's going to delay healing and increase scarring. So you don't want anything that burns. I know, you didn't think you were going to learn something tonight. So that, you want to have good stuff. Now, the other bad stuff is like the neosporin and the polysporin. Now, this was taught to me by one of the most brilliant teachers that I've ever had, Dr. Neil Hirsch. And he spent 13 years in medical emergency rooms. It creates a secondary infection. Right now on my skin, I've got viruses, I've got funguses, I've got bacteria, and they're living in harmony. Okay, so if I get a cut, that means I'm introducing viruses, funguses, and bacteria into an area that it shouldn't be. So luckily, since I'm human, once I get cut, histamines are released. That increases blood flow, it increases heat, it increases macrophage activity, it increases fibrogen. So all of this activity and this antimicrobial activity takes place immediately. Okay, so what you want to do is wash it out. That's the best thing. If you put an antibiotic cream on there, that kills some of the bacteria, allows some viruses to grow. And when anybody here over 40, remember when you were a kid about a flesh-eating virus? No, you never heard of it. Now, do you hear flesh-eating viruses? All over the place. And so what happens when there's antibiotic-resistant staph? What do they clean the building with? Antibiotic soap. I mean, it's crazy world, because I'm going to show you what you can clean stuff with. So no neosporin, no polysporin, none of those things. The absolute best one in the world is colloidal silver. Okay, aloe, hydrogen peroxide. Just direct heat is phenomenal. We do direct heat on people with bladder infections because heat penetrates about 2 inches, moist heat, and viruses, funguses, and bacteria die at a higher temperature. The best thing if you have a child or an adult with a cold, what you want to do, what happens when you have a cold? You sneeze and cough, so you're trying to get rid of that. And what do you develop? A fever. That's because for every 1 degree increase in temperature, the speed of your immune system doubles. So if you're lucky enough to get 102 temperature, that's 64 times the speed of your immune system. I mean, this is incredible. Oh, I'm sorry, what does the TV tell you to take at the first sign of a fever? Tylenol. Okay, reduce the fever. It's just, that's insane. You never want to take the deadliest drug in America, which is acetaminophen, when you're already having an assault of a virus. You want to strengthen the immune system. So heat is fantastic. Sunlight actually has antimicrobial properties. You know, if you were a kid and you'd go into the ocean, you thought the ocean water was cleaning it. No, it's the actual bacterial properties of sunlight. Now, how to make colloidal silver. I got a video online on this. It's so simple. You get 4 9-volt batteries and you tape them together. Then you put 2 little pieces of wire with 2 alligator clips clipped on 99.9% pure silver and drop it in distilled water. Leave it there for about an hour. You're going to see some smoke in there. You can have some cool people will have a TDS meter or a total dissolved solvent meter. I don't have one. What I've got is a laser beam. So once you shine the laser beam through that water, and you can see it, there's enough particulate matter of colloidal silver in there that it's going to be effective in wiping out viruses, funguses, and bacteria. So then you take it, you filter it through a coffee filter after it settles down for about an hour, and you can reuse those rods to make gallons and gallons and gallons. And you could buy that 99.9% pure silver from a hobby store, a jewelry store, anything. I got 2 big old slabs of it from a jeweler up next to the boat, and I think that's going to last several hundred years. Okay, and it's really, really simple, and you can get this colored glass, and it stays fresh forever. It doesn't go bad. I mean, it's so cheap to make and so effective. When you take plant products out of the ground, you can spray them with colloidal silver, and this will kill the bacteria on it so that it stays fresher longer. However, if you want healthy probiotics in your stuff, you're not going to use the colloidal silver because that'll kill that too. Hydrogen peroxide. This is probably the best. Has anyone ever heard, what's that thing that the media tells you that you get if you step on a rusty nail? Tetanus. It doesn't come from rust. Okay? You can cut me with a rusty knife all day long. Wait, no, that would be sick. Okay? It doesn't come from rust, okay? It comes from sick farm animals that urinate on something, and it's an anaerobic bacteria that has to be buried in the ground. Okay, so it has nothing to do with rust. Okay, what's interesting with tetanus is very, very fragile. If it's exposed to air, it knocks it out. When you pour hydrogen peroxide on it, it instantly knocks it out. So this is not, oh my gosh, let's get a vaccine, which is toxic and dangerous. This is the best treatment for any type of infected wound, particularly tetanus. It's amazing. Now, there's 2 different types. The type that you get in the store, which is 3% in the little tiny brown bottle, that has toxic stuff where you can't take it internally, but you can use it topically. The food grade, I totally recommend. But you've got to look at the percentage of it, because a lot of times you only want to use it at 3%, and you'll see it at 35%. 35%, if you put that on your skin, it's going to burn. So you've got to dilute the food grade down to at least 3%, and then it's phenomenally effective against toxins, parasites, bacteria, viruses, yeast. Now, what's interesting, and this is kind of fun, because when you're doing research, the pharmaceutical industry and the industry as a whole doesn't want you to really be aware of natural products. So when you actually look at hydrogen peroxide, it's used for sterilization of cabinets, barriers. It's used in aerospace. It's used as an antimicrobial agent approved by the FDA. It's used to prevent infections in hospital environment. Hydrogen peroxide vapor is registered with the U.S. EPA as a sporoidal sterilant. So it sounds pretty good, right? When you go on Wikipedia, okay, it's a common misperception that hydrogen peroxide is a disinfectant or antiseptic for healing wounds. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, dude, you guys have never been more wrong. You know, it's very, very good. Okay, so I just put this up so that you're aware that there's a huge misinformation, okay, about hydrogen peroxide, and it's actually really good for you. Coconuts, coconut oil. Now, coconut oil lasts without refrigeration, okay, and it's phenomenal. Not just good for your brain, which we have to be aware of that because we're being inundated with the aluminum barium particles. It's incredibly good for your skin, for burns. It has antimicrobial effect. It kills bacteria, funguses, for athlete's foot. It's good for sunburns. It's good to eat, consume. If your brain has been damaged, like a lot of little kids today have been damaged because they have leaky gut, and they actually have frontal lobe damage, which is involved in impulse control. See, the brain has 2 different metabolic processes. It can burn glucose, and that's what it likes to burn. But if the receptor sites on the cells aren't working correctly, it can immediately switch over to fat metabolism. So this is good brain food. It's phenomenal. I mean, this should be in everybody's emergency kit. Aloe, this should be the plant that everybody has. It's tough back east to have it because it's going to be, there's a cactus, but, you know, put it inside, okay, because this is good for digestion. It's good for wounds. I mean, my dog got a rash and I taped it to his leg. I mean, it works fantastically good all the time. Now, poisoning. This is something that we are going to get poisoned occasionally. We are getting poisoned right now. So some of these things, like the activated charcoal, it literally acts like a sponge. The bentonite clay, again, it's like a sponge. It's like a detoxicant. You have to be kind of concerned with taking anything that binds and eliminates heavy metals, because if you're taking it with a mineral supplement or with vitamins, you can also lose nutrients. So make sure when you're detoxing yourself that you're not doing it when you're taking in supplements. Now this, chemtrail detox, just about. I mean, this is everything. The Lugol's iodine from Ancient Purities is my favorite without a doubt. It's just, it comes from England on the absolute slowest boat you could possibly get. I think, honest to goodness, it must come by way of Panama Canal. It takes about 2.5 weeks to get here. You know, ever see the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's 2 weeks to get here, you know. It's an oddity. We're 2 weeks from everywhere. Okay, so when we look at this, Lugol's iodine is fantastic because it helps the thyroid. We are being bathed in radioactive particles, but it also detoxes heavy metals. It's also great topically because it's an antimicrobial effect as well. Essential fatty acids, phenomenal to detox with aluminum. Omega-3s, ginger, the clay, mushrooms, potassium, and I put a lot of it inside of your handout here as well. Now here's some more. The vitamin E, incredibly good. It works really well with vitamin C and high-dose vitamin C. But all of this you can put in your kit. It doesn't require refrigeration. I mean, curcumin, saffron. The flax seed has to be a seed and not an oil, because the oil itself rancidifies really quickly. The seed itself is already a beautiful little package that holds the oil inside that lasts for a long time. And if you grind it up, then you get the benefit of the oil as well. But it does rancidify quickly. And cinnamon. And you start looking at this and you think, wait a second, curcumin, saffron, cinnamon, I got that in my cupboard. Yeah, and it's actually really good for you. This is what's frustrating. I mean, we've been looking at skies with lines and that are milky white and not deep blue for over 10 years. And it's slowly creeped into where you think this might be normal. If you Google blue sky for pictures, you're going to see these lines. This one up here, that's what sky used to look like. Okay, and I don't know if anyone remembers it, but we used to go camping all the time. We used to look at massive stars everywhere. You could see the satellites going across. You can't see that anymore. Okay, they've reduced the sunlight in the northern hemisphere about 25% so far. So we have to change. I mean, you know, and this is the step, is making people aware of this. The beauty of this is, I mean, we got this planet, we got to take care of it. Doesn't this look like miraculous stuff? You know, we're 2014. You think we're advanced? Do we know how this happens? No. We know that sperm hits the egg. We don't know what happens after that. We know it divides. We don't know why a stem cell can zip over and become a liver cell or zip over and become a kidney cell, why it grows to just the right height and then stops. Nobody knows that. We don't know why a cell goes over to the B and bone and becomes a B cell and a B lymphocyte, or the thymus and becomes a T lymphocyte. But we don't know how this works. Okay, and so there's a beauty about this. I mean, the Earth is going to survive no matter what. We're going through an incredibly ignorant period where these flat Earth people are trying to change the environment, and even more flat Earth people are trying to change the ecosystem of our body, and it's not working. Okay, so just have an appreciation for how beautiful this is, and we will survive. And that's why I like this handout here. Everything you do for yourself or your body, you're either going to move towards health or towards death. So if you choose the orange from Chile that's traveled 10,000 miles to get here, you're using up more energy than is required, or than is needed. If you're buying commercially produced animals from a concentrated feed organization or operation, that's moving closer towards death of our planet. If you grow your own vegetables, you're moving closer towards life. Okay, does that make sense? So it's think globally, act locally. But by God, you gotta prepare. You gotta prepare to have it 3 months, 6 months would be better. And you know why I want 6 months to a year of food? Because we'll probably only need it for like 3. So we can help others. We're not the only ones, you know? And that's why we gotta share. Okay, so now that you're armed with the knowledge, you can share. Now, all of these slides and handouts and everything are available on Owner's Guide, unless you're a patient. If you're a patient, it's free as long as you're a patient. Okay. On Owner's Guide, everybody throughout the world gets it for 7 days for free. Okay. Why? Because we can save the planet. Okay. It's pretty cool. Now, next week, Nikki, Ginny, and Stuart's going to talk about foods that heal, foods that kill. Beef and fish. She's actually going to talk about healthy ones. Okay, and Lori's got some coupons for everybody. Thank you very much. Now,